I'm the director of operations for Hello Adorn. We're an e-commerce jewelry company in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Everything's handmade. So we have currently 15 makers on our production floor that are hand making, typically gold filled and silver jewelry 5 days a week. We do some made to order. We do build to stock as well. We're turning 4,000 to 5,000 pieces of jewelry a week. Everything for our finished goods and raw materials can fit on a 600 square foot area because it's jewelry. It's small, very small pieces. We utilize Shopify, Fair, TikTok. We're getting into Shopify B2B. We have a retail store as well on site with our production facility. Hello Adorn started is in the kitchen of our owner Jess's house, and they started with just her and her husband, and then they grown to 50 plus employees in a relatively short time. Blew up right kind of during that COVID time when e-commerce was really booming, and you haven't looked back. Previously, we utilized an MRP system. Made the switch to the ERP system with just the volume that we were doing, the size of business, being able to better control of our inventory. As operations, I oversee the supply chain, fulfillment, production, everything integrated with Fulfil. Super easy. Our customer service platforms, as far as Gorgeous and Narvar, we were able to integrate with Fulfil. Our logistics times greatly improved with utilizing Fulfil, and we launched mid-August, and our peak season is right then. Like we were in our ramp up point, and launching an ERP system and going right into our peak season, and then me starting a new job, I was a little bit worried that hey, there's a lot of changes happening, but our team was able to. We were able to go from the moment we launched. There was no disruption to our day to day. We were able to keep trucking, keep doing what we're doing. We had a bigger Cyber Monday, Black Friday than we ever had, and that was partly due to Fulfil and being able to sell against our buildable, sell against the raw materials that we had the team that could build it, that next week. But previously we were selling to stock always, and we'd have to forecast, and we were at 20% growth year over year for the last 5 years. That trying to forecast, trends. Jewelry is very trend heavy. That if we miss out on a trend and we're forecasting from last year's data or the last few months' data, but trends shift so quickly that jewelry that people want to buy and that November timeframe is different than what they wanted to buy in August. Being able to sell against buildable was huge. We saw record sales this year, and it also really leaned up our holdings too. That was a big goal of when I came in. How can we be more efficient with what we're holding? It just inherently did that, because now we're taking what we're actually selling, and then we're not building things that we're going to sit on for a long period of time. I've never experienced such a smooth ERP transition. Quite a background. We used to be in automotive industry, utilizing Oracle systems. I work with a major Fortune 500 company. We were in the midst of shifting softwares when I was there. But the biggest difference, I think, with Fulfil, if I sent an email, I'd get an email back the same day. If I had a question, we were getting a response within 24 hours. Then having somebody come from Fulfil on site for the week was huge as well. Just to be able to ask those questions real time, we're able to walk through SOPs, be able to help develop those SOPs real time. Yeah, it was great. And then, a lot of times too, you launch and then you're forgotten about. The last 9 months that we've been with Fulfil, we have bi-weekly communication. I have team members submitting questions on the daily still with, process improvements, ideas and questions, and we're getting responses, real time, and we're able to continue our day to day without any interruptions due to the software. With our supply chain, having visibility to inventory has greatly improved. We previously used Katana and MRP system. It worked fine for a small scale, but didn't have as much traceability. People were able to manipulate things that the data integrity just wasn't there. Going fairly big scale now, where we have a retail space, we have our warehouse. We use 1099 contractors. Going across all of that to be able to manage that inventory made it extremely helpful. Each day I'm able to check where we're sitting on different inventory levels, and we launch a lot of new products. We also retire a lot of products. products that we were able to find over $60,000 worth of raw materials that we were no longer using because Fulfil was able to present it in such a way of, hey, like these materials are just kind of are in limbo right now. So that, okay, we now have a plan for those materials, and now we can get some better cash flow back into the business with materials that were just going to be sitting around otherwise. $60,000 worth of jewelry is not a lot of, doesn't take up a lot of space. It could be in one drawer you have, $10,000 to $20,000 that if it was set aside and it was, not put into the MRP system that we had correctly, somebody's going to forget about it, and it's, there it goes. But when we doing that transition with Fulfil, we were able to get everything in correctly, and we were able to then have just better visibility across the board with that. I come from a data analytics background, so I'm fairly big in with Excel, and like that's my sweet spot. So I really started utilizing the data warehouse with Excel, building out reports and being able to generate reports, do different data dumps into my built out Excels, and that was fantastic, and that worked really well. But there's still just a fair amount of manual manipulation. But within the last month, we added Claude connections to Fulfil, and oh my gosh, it's night and day difference. It's you type in just hey, pull this data for me from Fulfil, and it does, and then you can generate these great reports, different either templates or different dashboards that then we can share with the team. Like we can get in a very clean manner very quickly, that now I'm not spending a lot of time in Tableau or trying to create these different presentations, that it's just, hey, give me this data, get it in this format. I have it within minutes versus hours. Huge time saver as far as presenting the data to leadership as well as the team. It's been really good being able to have everything on one platform, and especially we utilize the accounting feature within Fulfil as well, so everything just rolls up, and we're able to make a lot of future decisions versus I feel like we had a lot of weekly meetings that we were looking back at the past weeks, and we weren't really making decisions off of that. It was like, okay, this is what it was. But now that everything's rolled up in one, we're not spending as much time gathering that information for one, but then we're able to look at it and clearly make decisions of going forward about how do we make those changes. E-commerce is always changing, that if we're not able to make those decisions for a month, 3 months, a year out, it's, we can get stuck. So definitely having everything in one place made it a lot simpler. We were shipping, utilizing Shopify previously. So we were going in and creating individual shipments and like batches of 21, but there's really no rhyme or reason to the batches within Shopify versus within Fulfil. We were able to put different rules, different automations in place to say, hey, for this, let's ship any items that are just this one item, let's ship. So our most popular item, our tiny twist, will have 15 different shipments of our 21 size shipments that are all this tiny twist, and somebody can rep through that in 10 minutes versus hours before, because now it's just the same thing over and over and over versus having, okay, here's a tiny twist, the next shipment's going to be these 3 different items. So just where we're cutting down on our step time, our the transition time. And during that peak season too, we a lot of times had seasonal help that they just don't know the product, they don't have much experience. We have thousands of SKUs that, hey, we can put them on these 1 or 2 items, and we can hand them the items, and it's pretty darn easy to say, hey, put this one item in the box, put it in the bag, go, and they can do that. So just being able to scale for that peak time too was extremely important. We recently shifted to Shippo, and I know Fulfil has a really good connection with Shippo, so that made it super easy. We were able to start rate shopping, and that's going to be huge savings for us. We should see 2 to 300,000. It was just such an easy transition, overnight, and no hiccups, no issues, no nothing. That any major changes that we have not had issues with our day-to-day operation. The willingness to hear suggestions, the willingness to implement them. Is for one, that I feel like a lot of things that we've asked for have come to fruition in the last 9 months, and just the ease of putting the questions in, and the balance of, there's a lot of documentation that, we might not need to ask the question, but if we do, it's going to first send us to that documentation that we can then find it in the quick, we don't have to wait for a response. But if the documentation doesn't tell us, what we need, there's also AI solutions that can pull everything together, or we are able to connect with a real person. We've been submitting questions now for 9 months that we have a pretty good relationship with a lot of the people. Partnership's been great. Absolutely recommend Fulfil.